for a brand new show. Scooby Doo is here again, away we go.
Scooby Doo is running from a spooky ghost.
Shaggy isn't doing what he does the most. Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved.
Hang around for Scooby Doo.
Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved.
Hang around for Scooby Doo. That's my pal. Scooby Dooby Doo.
Hello, Scooby Doo fans! Welcome to my Season 1 Episode 15 review of The Scooby Doo Show. So last time I continued my reviews of The Scooby Doo Show with a review of Season 1 Episode 14 of The Scooby Doo Show. I hope you guys enjoyed that. But of course today, I'll be covering Season 1 Episode 15 of The Scooby Doo Show, titled The Ghost of the Bad Humor Man, which was released on December 11th, 1976. The short synopsis of the episode is, one rainy night, Shaggy drives the Mystery Machine and wrecks it. He bumps the Mystery Machine at the Happy Humor ice cream factory. A trip inside to use the phone to get a tow truck turns into a mystery, complete with 3 Technicolor Phantoms: chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla. So as per usual, I'll be watching Season 1 Episode 15 of The Scooby Doo Show on the Scooby Doo Dynamite Hour, the complete series DVD. This DVD has every episode of Season 1 of The Scooby Doo Show, as well as every episode of Dynamite. Unfortunately, this is the only DVD physical media release of Season 1 of The Scooby Doo Show, so if you want to watch Season 1 of The Scooby Doo Show on any sort of physical media, this is your only option. But if you're also a fan of Dynamite, this is a nice added bonus for you as well. Now, as far as this episode's reception is concerned, I'm not really sure how fans feel about this particular episode. It is fondly remembered by the Scooby Doo community, but I'm not really sure if that's in a good way or a bad way or just a decent way. It's mainly remembered due to the villains of the episode, because they're 3 ice cream phantoms that are basically redesigns and reskins of the Phantom Shadows from Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? So, there's really only one way to find out if this episode is good, bad, or average. So, let's take a look at the episode to see whether I think it is a good or bad episode of the Scooby Doo Show. The episode begins on a rainy night where we see Shaggy driving the Mystery Machine, despite the fact that when we saw an exterior shot of the van, Fred was seen driving the Mystery Machine, but then when they cut to the interior of the van, Shaggy's suddenly driving. I'm assuming that's just recycle animation error. I'm going to chalk it up to that, but it's an interesting inconsistency that I thought I'd point out. Then a black cat races across the road, causing Shaggy to swerve and crash into the garage of the Happy Humor ice cream factory. Upon investigation, they find the tires blown and a huge pile of popsicles in the middle of the road. A news bulletin comes over the radio in the Mystery Machine and announces that an armored car containing $2 million has been stolen. Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby enter the ice cream factory in search of a phone. They run into Mr. Grizzly, the night watchman, who warns them about 3 Technicolor Phantoms and then shows them a phone. But when Velma picks up the phone, a threatening message warning the gang they are doomed if they stay there comes over the line. Then suddenly, the 3 Technicolor Phantoms appear. 1 chocolate, 1 vanilla, and 1 strawberry. After the Phantoms have gone, they meet the owner of the factory, Avery Queen, who is wearing a cast on his leg and is on crutches. Fred tells the girls to stay with Mr. Queen while he and Scooby and Shaggy go have a look around. Shaggy and Scooby claim they are going to guard the Mystery Machine, but the Vanilla Phantom chases them into the freezer and locks them inside. But to their dismay, the ice cream is still completely frozen and hard as a rock.
You and Daphne stay with Mr. Queen. Shaggy and I'll have a look around.
Good idea, Fred. You check here. Scooby and I'll check inside the Mystery Machine. And we'll make sure all the doors and windows are locked. Zoinks! What a break. We're safe, Scoob. That creepy phantom will never think of looking for us in here. Look! You know, we've landed right inside Mr. Queen's ice cream storage room. Imagine, Scoob, you and me alone with 1,000,000 gopsicles. Yo! This gopsicle is like a rocksicle. Oh, this is terrible. You know, we may have to wait until spring before they thaw out.
We'll wait.
Yeah, for 1,000,000 gopsicles, we'll wait until summer, Scoob, huh?
Fred informs the girls that Shaggy and Scooby are missing, and they all go to search for them. Fred and the girls come upon a parking garage full of ice cream trucks, but several clues point out that the trucks are not really ice cream trucks, such as the trucks being so heavy that it causes a crack in the floor and the doors are locked. But suddenly, the Strawberry Phantom appears and chases them. Back in the freezer, Shaggy puts on a brown winter coat, and the Strawberry Phantom appears and believes that Shaggy is the Chocolate Phantom. Sound familiar? Well, this is something that happened in the Cass Elliot episode. Remember when Shaggy was mistaken for a glob? Well, they're literally doing the exact same thing here. Although, in this case, it's a lot less believable. Because in the glob episode with Cass Elliot, it made sense why Shaggy was mistaken for a glob. Because he was covered in the same goop as them and looked the same size as them. But in the episode here, he doesn't really look like the Chocolate Phantom. I don't know how he's being mistaken for it. Just because he has like a brown winter coat and he has the zipper up and he has a hood over his head, you can clearly see when he's running, you can see his feet, and his face looks nothing like the Chocolate Phantom. So I don't know how Shaggy gets mistaken in this episode for the Chocolate Phantom. But yes, literally, it's a reused element that we've seen before in the Cass Elliot episode. But then the other Chocolate Phantom appears, giving Shaggy away, and Shaggy flees. He eventually meets up with Scooby, Fred, Velma, and Daphne, but they are not relieved because the Strawberry Phantom appears again and chases them again. Fred decides to set a trap, but Shaggy falls into it instead, and the Phantom escapes. Once again, this is due to the fact that Shaggy's mistaken for the Chocolate Phantom, and once again, I question, how is he being mistaken for the Chocolate Phantom? But thankfully, he's able to get the brown winter coat off, so he's not going to be mistaken for the Chocolate Phantom anymore. They go to find Mr. Queen and find him running without his crutches, and they chase him into a room and he vanishes. Mr. Queen is getting suspicious because he faked his broken leg. And the Vanilla and Strawberry Phantom make their entrance. Velma, Daphne, and Fred escape, but Shaggy and Scooby fall down an air duct and get locked in the milk-making room. Scooby accidentally breaks the valve in the machine, and it goes out of control, filling the room up with milk. Velma, Fred, and Daphne find cans of white paint and realize that the ice cream trucks are all white. They rush to the parking garage, where they discover that the same truck that was heavy enough to crack the floor is covered in white paint, and the truck feels like it's solid steel. Suddenly, all three Phantoms appear and chase Fred and the girls around the garage, and Shaggy and Scooby get out of the milk room and fall through an air duct, falling onto the Phantoms, saving Fred and Daphne and Velma. The three goons try to escape in an ice cream truck, but it crashes and tons of money comes falling out of it, and the gang drive two more trucks right next to the Phantoms, blocking the doors, preventing them from going out. The Phantoms are unmasked as two unnamed henchmen and Mr. Grizzly, whom the policeman identifies as Sammy the Shrimp, a very skilled hijacker. Mr. Queen appears and explains that his fake cast was full of his own money, and he was afraid that the Phantoms would steal his money if he left it in his safe. Sammy and his two henchmen robbed the armored car that was mentioned on the radio and hid it in the garage at the factory. They then began painting the armored car to look like an ice cream truck to fool the authorities. After the crooks are taken to prison, the episode ends with Shaggy and Scooby feasting on many gopsicles. I'm going to give Season 1, Episode 15 of the Scooby Doo Show 2 stars out of 5. Yeah, this wasn't a great episode. It was probably the worst episode of the series so far, if not a contender for the worst of the series so far. It's really bad. Like, it's definitely probably the worst of Season 1, but whether it's the worst of the show is still yet to be seen, because we still got plenty more of the Scooby Doo Show to go. But this is my least favorite episode of the season. Like, it bordered on 1-star territory. It's lucky that it's even at 2. That's how bad it was. But before I get into my negatives for the episode and why I really don't like this episode and why it possibly may be one of the worst episodes of the series, I'll first go over my small list of positives for the episode and what I did like about it. So starting with the positives, my first one is I think Shaggy and Scooby were good in this episode. Not one of their finest outings, but they were passable. They were their usual funny, cowardly selves. They fulfilled their basic roles. Not the best outing for them, though. They could have been a lot better, and they almost did verge on being bad, but thankfully they had enough moments to save them from being passable and decent in this episode. And I did like getting to see Shaggy drive the Mystery Machine. I think that was a cool, nice little aspect that we hadn't seen before and we don't see often, so I love getting to see that. Seeing Shaggy drive the Mystery Machine was cool. But yeah, Shaggy and Scooby, not too bad in this episode. Couple funny moments. They were the usual funny, cowardly selves. And my final positive is that I think the villains of the episode were actually quite good. Which is very surprising because they're just redesigns and reskins of the Phantom Shadows. But I can see why people like them. So, of course, the main villains of the episode were the Technicolor Ice Cream Phantoms. You had the chocolate Technicolor Phantom, you had the vanilla Technicolor Phantom, and you had the strawberry Technicolor Phantom. All, like, you know, ice cream flavored, you know, colored phantoms. And they were very fun and entertaining. They weren't particularly scary. They didn't have the scare factor that the original Phantom Shadows did. I felt like they did not have that. But they were fun and entertaining, and I did like seeing the Phantom Shadows redesign as ice cream flavors to fit the setting. Normally, I'm not a big fan of recycled designs and stuff like that, but I felt like in this instance it was clever enough and good. This episode was very heavy on the recycling bit. They reused a lot of stuff from A Night of Fright is No Delight and the Cass Elliot episode, A Haunted Candy Factory, so yeah, there was a lot of retread and reusing and recycling elements from past episodes. But this is the one and only aspect that I didn't mind them reusing because they did it cleverly and they made the Technicolor Phantoms very fun and enjoyable. So I can see why people find them memorable enough and fun and enjoyable enough despite being basically a retread and a reskin and a reuse of the Phantom Shadows from A Night of Fright is No Delight. But that's all I got for positives, so let's get on to the negatives of the episode and what I really didn't like about this episode. So starting with the negatives, my first one is I think Fred, Daphne, and Velma were all weak in this episode. So when it comes to Fred, I felt like he wasn't really much of a leader in this episode. He didn't really lead the way towards anything. He had small bits here and there, but not enough for me to consider him much of a leader in this episode. He didn't really piece together the clues to help solve the mystery. And while he did create a trap, he used it on Shaggy because he mistakes Shaggy as the Chocolate Phantom. So it took away, you know, what could have been a cool moment for Fred, but instead, you know, it was just a goof up. The only thing it did was help Shaggy out with getting the zipper unstuck. So yeah, Fred, he just didn't have enough moments to shine, and I maybe could have given him a pass had he actually trapped one of the villains with his trap, because he did create a cool trap, but he didn't, so I can't give him a pass on that, because like everybody else, he stupidly mistaked Shaggy for the Chocolate Phantom, and I just find that hard to believe, like I said in the episode, how the gang and the Strawberry Phantom were able to confuse Shaggy for the Chocolate Phantom when he really didn't look anything like the Chocolate Phantom, and you could clearly tell, as an audience member, I could tell the difference, you know, so whereas in the Cass Elliot episode, I could conceivably see why someone could mistake Shaggy as one of the Green Globs. As far as Daphne goes, again, she didn't really do much either. Wasn't a leader, didn't piece together the clues to help solve the mystery, wasn't funny, wasn't cowardly, none of that, didn't really shine in any sort of way. Velma did not piece together the clues to help solve the mystery, she wasn't much of a leader, and again, she also didn't really do much either. So yeah, I mean, Fred, Daphne, and Velma just didn't really do anything in this episode. It just felt like a lot of running around, really. I mean, they didn't really feel like they were solving a mystery. It just kind of felt like they were going from one place to the other. Like, first they were looking for, you know, Fred, Daphne, and Velma were looking for Shaggy. Well, they were looking for a phone at first. Then they're looking for Fred's going to look for Shaggy and Scooby. You know, because he wants to split up and search the factory for the Phantoms. And then, you know, Shaggy and Scooby go missing, and Fred gets Daphne and Velma to, you know, help in the search. And then they realize, and then when they do find Shaggy and Scooby, they find, you know, Avery Queen gone, so they go to look for him. And then, yeah, it's basically just like a lot of searching for certain people rather than let's investigate this weird mystery and let's find some clues to what is going on. So yeah, Fred, Daphne, and Velma didn't really have anything going in this episode. They were weak. Not a strong outing for them in this episode. Then we have the villains outside of costume, who are, of course, Sammy the Shrimp and his 2 unnamed henchmen. Now, his 2 unnamed accomplices or henchmen, we don't know jack shit about them. We don't know who they are. We just know that they helped him with the robbery. And Sammy the Shrimp, we don't know who he is either, because he goes under the fake name of Mr. Grizzly, the Night Watchman. And the police officer has to explain who he is, which is, again, I hate when police officers do that. So, I hate when Scooby episodes have to have the police officer not only explain the identity of the villain, but the villain technically did, I know the villain technically did do a double disguise, or at least he created a fake persona. And I'm really getting annoyed by that. I really am getting sick of the double disguises and fake personas and identities. Like, they really need to cut back on that. Like, it's becoming a little bit too prevalent, I'm noticing, towards the end of the season. We had that in the last episode, and now we're having it this one. It's just getting a little bit annoying. I don't really like that, so they combine 2 things I don't like. They had the police officer explain who the villain is, because we assume that's Mr. Grizzly, when in fact Mr. Grizzly is not his actual name, but it's just Sammy the Shrimp, and he pretends to be this like old night watchman. And the 2 unnamed accomplices, we don't know who they are. So yeah, the fact that the police officer has to explain who they are, and that Sammy the Shrimp used a fake persona, fake identity, is very similar to the last episode with the double disguise. So it's just really annoying. And yeah, we just didn't really get to know any of these men outside of costume. And I just hate when they use those sort of tropes. Mainly, at all, but, especially when they do it back to back, it's really annoying. I found the motive of the episode to be very lackluster and interesting. So essentially the motive of Sammy the Shrimp and his 2 henchmen was that they wanted to scare everyone away from the ice cream factory so they could finish painting and disguising their armored car that they stole that had the $2 million, and, disguise it and paint it as an ice cream truck, a Happy Humor ice cream truck, and then get away with the robbed money unseen, undetected, and get past police blockades. So it's pretty much a robbery motive. I mean, they already completed the robbery. It's now just them smuggling the money, outside of state, I'm assuming. And yeah, this just feels, we've had this before. We had this, in the Cass Elliot episode in the new Scooby Doo movies. It feels very similar to that. We've had robbery motives in the Scooby Doo Show before as well in season 1. So this is nothing new. This is a very repetitive motive, and there's not much flavor to it. And while I do like the idea, this little element that they paint the armored truck as a Happy Humor ice cream truck, I think that's really cool. That's a nice little element. But they needed a little bit more than that to make their scheme and motive feel unique in any way. Like, it just felt very repetitive. Like, we've seen this before. This isn't anything new. Honestly, this feels very repetitive of the Cass Elliot episode and previous episodes of the Scooby Doo Show that had similar robbery motives like this. So yeah, motive was very unoriginal, very lackluster, very uninteresting. Nothing new, just a plain, boring money motive. The most interesting thing is them painting the armor car as a Happy Humor ice cream truck. That's the extent of their uniqueness in this motive. There was a lack of suspects in the episode, so you only had 1 suspect in the episode, which was Avery Queen, the owner of the Happy Humor ice cream factory. And technically, people could argue Mr. Grizzly, but Mr. Grizzly's just a fake identity, fake persona of Sammy the Shrimp. So I don't really count him as a suspect, but even if we did count him as a suspect, that's still only 2 suspects. And that's way below the threshold that we need for 3 villains. If you're going to have 3 villains, you need at least 3 or more suspects. Probably 4 or more suspects would be preferable. But yeah, there was really only 1 suspect, and that was Avery Queen, because Mr. Grizzly was not his real name. He was just a fake persona, fake identity. So, even though we knew Sammy the Shrimp beforehand, we didn't know him, his real persona, his real identity, and his real personality. We just knew his fake persona and fake identity. So I don't really count him. So Avery Queen's the only suspect in the episode, and while he's reasonably suspicious, they could have done with a lot more suspects in this episode. I mean, you have an ice cream factory, so why not? Why not build up the suspect count? You have a factory setting. Why not build up that factory, with some workers, some suspicious workers that are still around, even despite of the haunting. I found the mystery of the episode to be quite weak, in all honesty. So essentially, the mystery of the episode was that you wanted to know why these 3 ice cream Technicolor phantoms were haunting the Happy Humor ice cream factory. Why were they targeting this specific factory? They're ice cream phantoms, but what's their backstory? Why are they haunting this particular ice cream factory? But the answers we get are unsatisfying because it's just a repetitive, scenario that we've seen before. So it's the answers we got were very unsatisfying, which makes the mystery unsatisfying as a result. While they did have a somewhat interesting mystery built up, they didn't follow through with it, and I just felt like it ended up being a weak mystery because they gave us unsatisfying answers and an unsatisfying conclusion. I found the clues to the episode to be quite weak, in all honesty, so there was really only one clue in the episode, which was the white paint cans. I don't count the truck that had the crack under it. I don't really consider that a clue. Even if I did, I don't think either of them point towards a suspect or a motive. They just explain how the villains are executing their motive, so yeah, the clues definitely, we needed some more clues in the episode to kind of point towards a suspect or drop more hints on what the possible motive could be, because just looking at the clues that we had now, neither of them really pointed towards a suspect or a motive in the episode. I found the atmosphere to be very non-existent in this episode. I felt no tension or suspense or creepiness or eeriness in this episode, neither from the villains nor the setting, and I'll get onto that in a little bit. But yeah, I wasn't fearing for the gang's safety. I wasn't on the edge of my seat wondering what was going to happen next, and nothing in the Happy Humor ice cream factory really was particularly creepy or eerie, and nothing about the villains were creepy or eerie. So yeah, basically no atmosphere in this episode. It was practically non-existent. And my final negative for the episode is that I found the setting of the episode to be very weak and a bit repetitive, in all honesty. So the main setting of the episode was, of course, the Happy Humor ice cream factory. And while it is a new type of setting, and it could have been done justice, I don't feel that it was. It was very repetitive and felt very similar to the Cass Elliot episode. It literally feels beat for beat like the Cass Elliot episode. To switch out Candy Factory for Ice Cream Factory, the set pieces are very similar, with Shaggy and Scooby being in a bunch of different rooms that have, food or drink. The villains are basically, made out of food somewhat. And yeah, like the villain's motive is very similar, and Shaggy even gets mistaken for one of the villains, just like in the Cass Elliot episode. So it just kind of feels like everything is a repetition of that episode, like we've seen this before. And while an ice cream factory could be an interesting setting, I don't think they did it justice, because they just reused stuff that they had in the Cass Elliot episode and just put it in here, rather than creating a new type of ice cream factory that was cool and fresh and unique and didn't feel too repetitive of that episode. So yeah, it was weak mainly due to its repetitiveness. It felt way too similar to the Cass Elliot episode with the candy factory, and it just felt like, that episode. It just felt like switch out Candy Factory for Ice Cream Factory. They're basically the same. Like, there's no distinctness, there's nothing distinct or unique about the setting to make it stand out and really cool, despite it being a new type of setting. So yeah, not really a fan of the setting of the episode. Could have been done justice, could have been good, but they just dropped the ball because they wanted to reuse something that they already did in the past. Overall, guys, I would personally not recommend this episode to fans and newcomers of the show. This episode is borderline bad. Like, this is a contender for one of the worst of the series. So repetitive, it just felt like recycled stuff left and right. Nothing new. Very repetitive, very boring. And it just felt way too similar to the Cass Elliot episode. Way too similar to A Night of Fright Is No Delight. It was terrible. It was a reuse of a lot of past elements, but none of them were unique or interesting because they didn't make them fresh and new in any sort of way. And while I found the Technicolor Ice Cream Phantoms to be really fun and entertaining, and I could totally understand why people love those villains, and they were definitely one of the few highlights of the episode, one of the two besides Shaggy and Scooby, they just weren't enough to save this episode, and I personally would not go back to this episode whatsoever. It is probably the worst episode of Season 1, unless if Episode 16 somehow tops it. I believe this is the worst episode of Season 1. This is definitely the worst episode so far. Now, whether it's the worst of the series, I can't say for certain. We'll have to see how future episodes go, but it's definitely a contender for one of the worst of the series. Really terrible episode, really bad episode. Just a very lazy and repetitive episode across the board. And the only good things about it being Shaggy and Scooby, at least being somewhat decent, and the Technicolor Phantoms being fun and enjoyable. Other than that, it's a terrible episode, and I would never go back to it, and I would not recommend it at all. Don't watch this one. It's not worth it's not worth the viewing. It's not good. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the episode. Do you like this episode? Do you think I'm being really harsh on it? Do you see things that I don't see? Like, do you actually really like this episode? If so, I would love to hear it. I personally don't like it, but I would love to hear, like, what makes this episode good in your eyes. Do you hate this episode? I'd be interested in that as well. Are you on my side? Do you believe that, do you agree with me that this is one of the worst episodes of the series and one of the worst episodes of Season 1? Probably the worst of Season 1. And just overall not a good episode. Or are you somewhere in the middle where you just think it's average and decent and it's okay, but it's not good or bad? I'm curious for your thoughts, so let me know. And subscribe for more Scooby Doo content like this, or if you're just interested in any of my other content, obviously I'll have more Scooby Doo content on the way. We'll be finishing off Season 1 of the Scooby Doo Show and then moving on to Season 2. We will sooner or later tackle the films, sometime in the near future. We will tackle, we'll continue tackling the video games. I should be getting the Let's Play up and going again once I have a new recording device that I can use for my PS2. I'll be bringing back the book reviews sporadically. I work on them, when I get the chance. I'm currently working on the next issue. So, be on the lookout for that. That's going to be fun. But yeah, if you love all things Scooby-Doo, if you're a diehard fan of Scooby-Doo, and you love talking all things Scooby-Doo, and love talking about these characters, and want to share your thoughts and opinions on Scooby-Doo media that you don't think gets talked about enough, come join the channel and experience some amazing Scooby-Doo content with me. And if you're a newcomer who needs some help, some direction on where to go, I'm more than happy to provide that. You can go to my past reviews or my current reviews on what shows I personally would recommend, and people in the comments and my audience can also recommend that as well. So yeah, if you love all things Scooby-Doo, if you're a newcomer or a diehard fan, whichever one you are, if you love the Scooby-Doo franchise like me and want to see all pieces of Scooby-Doo media tackle, not just the popular stuff that, certain channels like to touch upon, come join the channel, experience some amazing Scooby-Doo content, and let's have a blast with it. Let's talk about our favorite Mystery Inc. gang. In my next video, I'll continue my reviews of the Scooby Doo Show with a review of Season 1, Episode 16 of the Scooby Doo Show, titled The Spirits of 76. The final episode of Season 1 of the Scooby Doo Show. We have finally made it towards the end of Season 1, and then we will be going into Season 2. I'm very excited to tackle the Season 1 finale and see if it's actually good. I remember liking it, so I remember watching The Spirits of 76 a few times. So I think it should be hopefully good, or at least decent. It can't be any worse than this, hopefully. So hopefully it's a step up from this episode and at least ends season 1 on a high note. But we'll see how the season 1 finale pans out. So if you want to know my thoughts on the season 1 finale, season 1 episode 16 of the Scooby Doo Show, The Spirits of 76, then come join me next time. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, peace out.
We got it all together for a brand new show. Scooby Doo is here again, away we go.
Scooby Doo is running from a spooky ghost.
Shaggy is doing what he does the most. Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved.
Hang around for Scooby Doo.
Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved.
Hang around for Scooby Doo. That's my pal. Scooby Dooby Doo.